Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Maltzner.
And my hair is so flippy. I'm like Ron when he turned into Kim. Woo! It's just so flippy.
And you're watching episode 114 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
One More Name Part 2. Christina B.
And?
Prisoners of Fear Part 2.
Yes. Not really any news I did notice. I don't know. This is quite recent, I guess. The Novacom Saga is the box set. It is now on the OAC, which means you can now go listen to the hour-long Inside the Black Box bonus thing, which is amazing, and you should all listen to it because it is so funny.
They talk about cows.
Yeah, they talk about shotgunning cows to the head. They talk about lying to wedding pastry people.
The thing we always talk about with the wedding
so many
cake.
great stories on that bonus track, so make sure you listen to that.
Katie Lee is a part of the club. She can now hear that story.
And there's also 5 minutes of video of recording from Exit and the last 4 episodes of 38 in the studio. So, starting off, AIOC, episode 2, Wonk, episode 814, One More Name, Part 2, written still by Kathy Buchanan, the Cake Liar.
You have to apologize and say I was right about the last part of this.
Yes.
I was right and he was wrong.
It is true. Ariella is not Irina's sister.
I told you.
Ariella and Shoshana are not, and Shoshana is not Irina's mother. Irina's mother, sorry. Yes, I was incorrect, and Victoria was correct. You were right, and I was less right.
What's that from again?
Megamind.
Okay, that's what I thought. I love that movie. It's so good. It's talking
I
about
love you, random citizen. I was thinking about that last night when I was at Game Grumps.
It's such a good movie.
Because people kept on screaming, I love you, Dan, and I love you, Aaron, from the balcony in moments of silence. Okay, what happens in One More Name Part 2?
So, in this episode, Irina is still smuggling out... Irina still smuggling out people.
Hundreds of kids, apparently.
Yeah, and, trying to think of what happens over the end. She's talking about her mom. Her mom wants her to stop, but she's like, nah. And then the concentration camp stuff was actually kind of scary. I don't know about you. She was talking to Shoshana about how she should sneak out Ariella, and Shoshana was just like, nah, fam, I like fam. That's the first time I've ever said that word before. I don't like it. I got like this invite to go and hang out with all these other people in this safe spot called like this work camp. So that sounds like a good idea. So we're gonna go there. We sent message there. They're gonna pick us up in a couple days, and then Irina gets leaked that those are actually concentration camps that people are willingly going to because they think they're havens, which I was just like, that's terrifying. And so then she warns Shoshana, and Shoshana's just like, I want one more day with Ariella and then you can take her away, which was a bad idea because at the end of the episode, all these Nazis, I guess they found out that the info got leaked or something like that.
Well, they just moved out their plans, I assume.
Yeah, so they were like, we're going to pick up everyone a day early, so then they ended up like
They took all of the kids.
Yeah, they took everyone. Shoshana managed to hide Ariella, and
Stephen hid.
Yeah.
Or they didn't take him yet.
They didn't take him yet. They got Ariella out, but the guy who's bitter about his ice cream, him and his orphanage, they got. So now,
he didn't, but the orphanage did.
Yeah. Or where's he?
He's with Irina.
Okay.
He's staying in their house.
Yeah, he's hiding in their house.
And now he's going out to live in the country with near Ariella.
And
keep an eye on her.
Is that where the episode ends? There's something else, isn't there?
I think that's basically it.
I thought they were like, we have to get something.
Well, they're like, we need to get everyone out of Treblinka.
Yeah.
To stop these death camps.
Yeah. So, one woman mission to
and we also find out that Mr. Zagata, the mysterious sponsor of everything, real. He was the elusive man all along. It didn't exist.
Yeah. So
except the elusive man did exist, but
when they said that, I was like, I could have sworn we talked to him at one point.
Yeah, I thought he was the guy from before, but apparently it's Zach. Yeah. I guess. Mr. Zagata was just a fake person who was representing like a whole bunch of people who was a real thing. A bunch of Jews and Gentiles. They're like business people who are using money to help like the Jews. An organization. So, yeah, it was as emotional as the first part.
Every single time Irena talks, I just hear Marinette. It's kind of a problem.
Still, it's crazy to me that she's Christina V. And thinking about it now, I still like all I can think about is how it's like.
Do you hear Marinette when she talks? I know.
No, because I haven't really watched the English dub.
Yeah,
I've only seen a few clips, so no. But knowing
I haven't watched that many episodes of it either. But
knowing that it's her, all I can think about is like historical AIOO. She's Ladybug. She's fighting injustice, punching Nazis back in the 40s. That's so cool. Yeah.
It's so weird when they get people I already know from other things and put them in the show. I think the only, other than Jason, who plays Vance, and he's like Max and like lots of Disney stuff. No, there's also another Jason. Can't remember his last name at the moment. He played Jackson in Hannah Montana, and he was the
Jason
original.
Earls. He was just for Target of the Week. He was the voice of Vance. Yeah.
He was Vance. So anyone who plays Vance, like I already know him from something else.
Yeah, and one of the original voices for Marvin Washington was Corey, like Corey in the House.
Corey in the House.
That's who Raven's
Corey. Brother.
Corey Simone. Or Corey Baxter. I guess Simone is her real name, not her TV name.
Remember when there was like that really long phase where no one knew what her last name was?
Well, that's what I thought of it, yeah. Okay, so we find out that Irena has now smuggled out hundreds of kids, which is crazy for one person on an individual basis to do that many. Like, the number of times you'd have to change up your strategies to avoid getting caught doing that right under Nazi eyes. Like, it's not like she's, like, going out through the countryside or having to, like, sneak through borders. Like, she's doing it within the city where there's people all the time, and she has to pass through checkpoints and everything, and doing that many times without ever getting caught is incredible. I'm really glad they included some of the details about, like, the specific ways that they got the kids out, and they were, like, listing off, like, in coffins and toolboxes and taped to the bottom of stretchers and all sorts of stuff like that. I mean, I don't want to say, like, oh, adversity breeds creativity, because it really, like, demeans like the struggle they went through, and it's like, well, yeah, they were creative because they literally had to do that to survive and not all die. But it really is true that in times of hardship, that, you know, when you have to do whatever you can to survive, that adversity will create ideas of incredible things that you can come up in order to survive when it's life and death.
I don't really think I have that much to say about this episode.
In the discussion questions, there was a question that's like, would you prefer to be smuggled out in a toolbox, a coffin, or something else? And I was like...
a coffin. They seem like they'd be pretty comfortable. Although they probably aren't.
Don't know why.
So you want to be comfy when you're dead.
Yeah. Anyway, what were you saying? Sorry.
I like this part more than part one. I thought it was more exciting. But that's kind of to be expected with two-parters. Or three-parters. What was I going to say? I felt like we finally figured out what the plot was going to be in this one, like where it was going. But that was only at the very end of the episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. But I still feel like part one was really disjointed from part two, kind of, in a way.
I don't feel like it was very... I mean, we needed a lot of setup.
I know we needed a lot of setup, but the overall plot didn't start until, like, the very, very end of part two, it feels like. Like, the actual action kind of thing.
Assuming that's what it is.
We usually get, like, the action-y side, like, where you can follow and say, like, and predict what's going to happen from the end of part 1 of these things.
Sometimes. I mean,
like, think
Prisoners
about
of Fear,
Here Today, Gone Tomorrow.
It really depends. It depends on what kind of 3-parter it is.
I guess.
I thought it was also really smart that they use the officer schedule to make sure that she isn't being seen by the same ones too close together, so don't get suspicious. That addresses what I brought up in the first part about, like, going through the courthouse all the time.
That one part was super tense when the guy's food was taken. That reminded me kind of, like, I don't think I've been that tense in a scene since I watched... I
was like, I should have grabbed his ankles and pulled him into the sewer.
Since I watched Scream 2, and if anyone's ever seen that, there's this one scene that takes place in a car, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, and that's, like, the most intense scene I've ever seen in anything.
So I started tearing up on the bus again when Irina found out about the concentration camps and that she told Shoshana.
That part was so good.
I talked about this in the comment I left.
That was my favorite part. I
left on the OAC day, OAC, whatever. In my comment, I talked about how it's interesting, like, the Holocaust was bad. Citation needs. But we grow up hearing about it so much that, like many things, we become very desensitized to the actual semantics of what happened. We're so used to the idea of, like, oh yeah, the Nazis and the Holocaust and concentration camps, that we don't really get to process emotionally how bad it is. And so getting to hear it narratively in a position like this, where it's like someone in the midst of that situation learning it for the first time and hearing the reaction to it, really helps empathize with, like, understanding exactly how bad it is from an outside perspective. So hearing Irina's reaction to it and then telling Shoshana, like, it's hard to imagine the utter horror of first learning how depraved humanity could be like that. It should be shocking and horrifying to us every time, but we're so used to it. And then, once again, having to send your daughter away, like last time, not knowing if she'll survive being sent away, but knowing that if she stays, she absolutely will not. Is, you know, it hasn't gotten any easier since part 1.
The most tense for me, like I already said, was when they were like, hey, we're just going to go to this other place. And I was like, oh, I didn't know it was that easy to leave. And then you found out it was like a concentration camp, and I didn't realize that it was going to be a concentration camp. I was thinking, like, that's horrifying, like, thinking that you're going to get refuge and then willingly sending yourself there and your family.
So it was like, it would be worse. It would be, you know, you'd have to be working all the time, but at least you get food, is the point.
Yeah, but still, they're, like, not treating you well in any way. And yeah, just the ramifications. Like I said in the past, in this first part, I'm always, like, super interested in World War II stuff. It's, like, my favorite period of history, I'd say. I'm always up for hearing more about it. The last time I really learned anything new, substantial about it, was last year when I had to do a big report and project and stuff like that on the Hitler Youths. Ever since then, I think the thing about the camps and people actually sending themselves to it without realizing how bad they are is, like, the biggest thing I've learned about that era since then.
So. The episode ended too early. Like, I was like, it's over already? That was way too fast. I could listen to so many more parts of this.
Stuff is going to happen in the last part. I'm getting better at telling the difference between everyone's voices.
I want a lot more parts of this.
I have to, like, take back my earlier prediction in the first part about the mom being the one who sold her out. Considering the mom's part in this episode and her dialogue, I don't think she did it anymore. I think that was just something in general that happened, and we're not ever going to find out who did it.
So, once again, and I mean, we couldn't even quite really understand the fullness of it when we put the first part out, but these episodes were very timely when they came out politically. Like, I mean, we recorded our review for it like a week before the Muslim ban. And then there was the big terrorist attack in Canada, in Quebec, on that mosque by that far-right guy who killed 8 people in a mosque. So, talking about anti-Semitism and religious persecution in countries, and especially with this, because it's not about the concentration camps as much as it is about the Warsaw Ghetto, and looking at the slow societal progression of, Hitler spent years and years and years slowly building up the perception of society to be like, all of our problems are the Jews' fault. You need to trust Mother Germany. She will make us great again. Germany first. If we focus on that and pushing out the outsiders, the people who are dragging us down, then we can make our country great again. And then pinning more and more blame on them until, then you get Kristallnacht, and then the other things, and then the Warsaw Ghetto, and then finally the concentration camps.
Hitler wrote a book to convince people.
Long, gradual process of alienating marginalized peoples that he spent over a decade doing that slowly.
And Mein Kampf was a bestseller when it came out.
So, it's very timely right now. And the thing is, it's not even Islamophobia by itself, too. There's a lot of anti-Semitism going on as well right now. The Muslim ban was signed into order on Holocaust Remembrance Day, which I'm sure was Steve Bannon's idea. But the point is, it's very timely, these episodes coming out right now. Was there a degree of intentionality to that? At first I was like, probably not. But then Kathy Buchanan liked one of my statuses on Facebook talking about the ban and the wall and stuff like that. And I was like, I think there might have been a degree of intentionality to what Kathy was doing there.
Kelly Staples was in this?
She's Olivia, so.
Oh, I thought, my brain, I thought it said Kelly Washington for a sec.
No, so in the documentary, so we hear from Kelly Staples and Laurie Tretell, who play Olivia and Lily, and they talk about the effect of the episodes on them emotionally. It was very short, so 7 minutes. We see a short documentary clip about the crossing of the Red Sea, kind of showing the history of anti-Semitism from ancient Egypt to the Holocaust and how that's been there was basically the biggest focus of the WebQuest and the documentary was on historical anti-Semitism and how the Jews are God's chosen people and how that has affected them persecution-wise throughout history, all throughout Scripture, throughout history, and including the Holocaust. There's some random dude named Chuck. I have absolutely no idea who he is.
Is it Chuck Bowles-Hewing?
No.
You're just making a joke?
It's not. His name is Chuck. No last name, no organization given, anything like that. And he just tells the story about standing up to bullies when he was young and praying for guidance in trying times. I don't know. He's just some dude with a beard and a hoodie, and he's like, "My name's Chuck," and he tells a story.
So they did find him on the road. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you say there's a thing from Christina V?
No, I was just talking about her being the voice.
Oh, I thought you said there was
the new official podcast was an interview with her.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the WebQuest, like I said, it mostly focuses on anti-Semitism, and it uses that word specifically and tells kids what it means, which is important. There's a lot of people who are scared.
Definition of it?
Any persecution or prejudice against Jews or people, the Hebrew people, stuff like that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was groups in general or
no, it's Jew specific.
Okay.
Yeah. Semitic people.
What's Semitic mean? The root?
I remember asking Madame Saint-Jacques about this. Because I was wondering if it was the same root as seminary. Because I'm well, that's where you go to learn about the Bible. Semitic, I believe it is the same root as semen, meaning it means seed, like a seed of birth, because it's the Semitic people being this where civilization started in that part of the world, stuff like that. Mesopotamia, around there, all that stuff. I believe that's what the root is. But yeah, the Semite root does come from seed.
Okay.
Seed, beginning. So yeah, it talks about that, and not just in the Bible or the Holocaust, but talks about history in general. It suggests that people watch Fiddler on the Roof to understand the more passive...
You've seen that?
Yeah, to understand the more passive, systemic anti-Semitism that's occurred societally outside of times of war, which is pretty big, because people do not like to acknowledge persecution or racism when it's not something overtly flashy, like a war or genocide. So the fact that they're saying, like, give us a discussion guide for Fiddler on the Roof, and like here, even when it's not like they're not locking people in jail or like, you know, criminalizing people for being Jewish.
Among Fiddler on the Roof, they had like soldiers invade the town and like take all their money and interrupt the wedding. And
but the point is, there's
Feifel, is that her name? Her wedding.
Feifel's the main character from American Tale.
Whatever.
He's the mouse. But it might also be her name. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I watched it. I could be wrong. I only remember Octavia's
We watched it the year Netflix was created. I think I was like in grade 7 or something.
Well, not the year it was created. Netflix is a very old company.
The year Netflix
became an online streaming service. Netflix used to be a company where you mail ordered VHS tapes to your house.
Oh, that's why people get things from Netflix sent to them still.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
They would mail you VHS tapes, and then you would mail them back.
I know that Doug Walker, when he does a lot of movies, he gets Netflix to send him DVDs.
So what was I saying? Oh yeah, so it's a big deal for them to look at something where it's, you know, it's not like the Holocaust, or it's not like all the Jewish people are enslaved, but still say like there's still anti-Semitism going on here, even in times of peace, that society still has laws which will inherently cause the disproportionate persecution of certain groups of people, which of course happened then, still happens today in a lot of different ways. So I was really happy that they brought that up, and it's not just like big, like, oh, it only happens when it's something like the Holocaust or Japanese internment or residential schools or things like that. The discussion questions talk about using our privilege for good. It didn't use those exact words, but that's what it's talking about, which was great. It talks about how Irena was approached about smuggling kids by Itzhak and Karina because she had access to the ghetto, and how it was similar to Esther, and how she was in a unique position to save the Jews because she was the queen. And then, like, what kinds of access do you have in your life that you can allow God to use to help others? And like think about that, and that's literally what privilege is. So I thought that was like, that's a great thing to get kids to think about. What kind of access do you have that other people don't, that you can use as a platform to use for God and to help others? So the discussion questions for these have been great in terms of like getting kids to think about these important social things in ways that are relevant to them now.
Wait, this next one has a code name. Are you supposed to say what that is?
Yeah.
Are you allowed? Is it public knowledge what it is?
Well, World War II ended a long time ago. So I didn't know if it was
specifically World War II. Okay.
So there's a PF that talked about the whole Mr. Zagata thing, and how that was real, and that Zagata was a code name for the Council for Aid to Jews, and lists some of the things that it did, and that it was the only Polish organization during World War II that was run jointly by Jews and Gentiles from a variety of political backgrounds. So that was cool. And talked about like the different kinds of people were part of it, and like how all the different things that they did in terms of like, you know, getting the people out and relocating them, and all of the, like, you know, the nurses helping people and the business people funneling money to get them away and get them new identities and stuff like that.
I liked how they actually got to use like the Lord's Prayer in this episode. Thing that they were talking about in the last one.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even listen to the whole thing.
Well, no, I mean, it's just like, okay, yeah, you know it.
I have a feeling like one of them would be like, "Our Father," and he'd be like, "Keep on going," and they'd be like, "Cause that's the only thing I know from it."
Yeah, I mean, the first time Ariella started saying it, like her accent, the Jewish accent was very thick, and so they definitely, like, she had gotten that down by the second time that she did it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would have given it away.
Our Father who art in heaven. That's not Jewish. I can't do a Jewish accent. I can't do any accents except for British, kind of.
So it was really good, again.
I just do like a Transylvanian accent.
I really like this. It's really good. It's really dramatic. it's really important, both now politically and then to understand historically. It's extremely emotional. And
you have to understand the past mistakes so you don't do them again. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. The world's been doing a great job at that in the last 12 months. And not just the U.S. too. I mean, we rag on it a lot because they're at the forefront of things right now. But the shifting of the Overton window has happened dramatically in the U.S., in Canada, in most of Europe and Australia, all over the world in like the last year and a half. It's just, obviously the States gets the most media attention about it because they're kind of being the most overt about it. But, Canada's not doing much better in a lot of respects. So,
did you like this episode more or part 1? I liked this one more.
I think this one more, but only by a little bit. It's very good. I'm very looking forward to the third part. This has been phenomenal. Kathy has done an excellent job with it. She doesn't usually write a whole lot of like serious historical stuff.
Has she written any historical episodes?
The first one that comes to mind is The Last I Do. She wrote that.
I really love that one. Why do they always pawn all the romance episodes off on her? Does no one else know how to do it?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a degree of sexism to it that they're like, oh, Kathy, you can write all the romance episodes. We'll write all of the serious ones.
And then she's like, stop touching my characters, guys.
Yeah, stop ruining Mitch.
If I'm going to have to write it, then I'm in charge.
I made my dream man. You want me to write him, and then you take him and
you ruin it.
Ruin him.
You ruin it.
Monsters. But no, yeah, Kathy's a great writer, and she's done a phenomenal job with this.
No, I mean, I'm okay with Kathy doing the romance stuff because she does a really good job at it.
So yeah, that's that. Now we are. Oh, do you have any predictions for next time? What's going to happen? Do you think Irina's going to die in the next part? Do you think she's going to be able to rescue Shoshana?
Maybe.
I doubt it, because it's she's already in.
Well, I don't think Irina's gonna die, so I guess someone has to die. So Shoshana's gonna die.
Do you think Stephen is gonna die? Stefan?
Yeah. Yeah, he is Probably. Dead man written all over him. He didn't die in this one. I was curious if he would die.
Yeah, so that's that. Now we're going to talk about Prisoners of Fear, Part 2.
My hair smells good.
That's good.
Yeah.
We'll turn you over to that right now. So we're back now to talk about 575, Prisoners of Fear, Part 2, written by Marshall Younger. What happens in the second part, Victoria?
So in this episode, Eugene and Katrina are like, Marathi? What? Thank you, Devin. And then they go on a bridge and stuff, and the bridge is just like, get off of me! And so then they almost get killed by the bridge because, like, the water and stuff. And then they get off of it. They meet a guy who is, like, the equivalent.
And they find the dam.
They see that. And then they meet this one guy who's, like...
Well, Amon tells them all about, like, the Wolofs and Dalton Kern, although she doesn't say his name yet. And then about how Gobir was part of there, and then he came back, and then there's Yosef, and then they threw him in the river, and they gave away Marathi and Thelma.
They meet Yosef in this episode.
Yeah.
So. They meet him, and he's, like, basically that one guy from Indiana Jones who, like, helps you and then betrays you. And so then that's what he does. He sells them out because he's just like, no one will know that you're not Leonard and Thelma. And then,
even though you're, like, not the same age, like, remotely.
We're gonna give you to the Wolofs. And
because he's like, if I take you back to the Ashantis, they'll be like, this is Marathi, and they'll be like, isn't he a little young for Marathi? He's like, he has had an extensive skincare routine.
He's from Odyssey, and everyone's like, oh, that explains it.
So I don't have a whole ton to say about, like, little specifics here.
I don't either.
Because this episode
I really like the bridge scene. I think that's my favorite
good.
scene in this. The snake scene's in this one, isn't it?
Yeah. Right at the beginning.
Yeah, that That and the bridge thing.
The continuity about Eugene's past that they took and made into this new storyline that was intriguing and complex, and it has all these dynamic and round characters and new locales. It's heartbreaking because we see Eugene get hope and he's so scared to believe in it, and then we find out that his mother really did die and have to leave at the end of this without finding his dad. When he talks about like how much he needed his parents growing up in the next part. And then on the other side of things, there's the story of Yosef being thrown to the river and living in pain and isolation for 20 years away from everyone he's ever known, trying desperately to atone for his sins. And Gobir, who tasted this forbidden fruit of greed and the technology of the world and came back in repentance, but still chose to imprison his own people and deceive them under the misguided guise of protection. We have Katrina, who's trying to protect her husband from the dangers of the jungle and the Wolofs and having his heart broken, and snakes, while also trying to simultaneously encourage him to not miss out on the potential chance to miss out on the potential chance to right the biggest hurt of his entire life, losing his parents. It's just all so good, and all the characters have all of these different things going on.
Katrina's the best wife ever.
It's great. And Amon.
Yeah, and Amon.
Incredible.
Also, Thelma's a pretty good wife.
Yeah.
Leonard just isn't a good husband or dad.
Yeah. It's so good. I'm just blowing all my summary points before we get to part 3, but Prisoners of Fear is so good as an episode.
I'm so excited to see Wooten and Penny once they're married, and they're dynamic. I'm so excited.
As you pointed out last time, and also just a minute ago, the scene with Eugene and the knife is hilarious, especially when they get to the gravesite, and Katrina's like, oh, it's an ancient burial site, and Eugene's like, thank you, Katrina, just as I was getting comfortable with the idea of snakes.
They're so sassy with each other.
I also,
love it.
Right after this, I really like the exchange that they both have about hunches and walking by faith and not by sight, and like the things that Eugene has learned, and he's like, I believe that we need to do this, and she's
it's moments like that.
I love the way when she's like, lead the way, and you can hear like the smile on her face, like she's so proud of Eugene. That's like,
that's my husband, that's my hubby. It's moments like this where I think that they're speaking English because it's just the two of them.
That's probable, yeah. This whole arc, especially in places like this, especially in his exchanges with Leonard, are where we really get to appreciate how far Eugene has come as a character since Connie Part 1.
I appreciate that, like, every episode he's in.
Well, yeah, but these are the ones that really show it, is what I'm saying. It's so sad to me thinking about this, like, thinking about this from Eugene's perspective and not knowing, like, each thing as it happens and not knowing the future. It's so sad to me that barring Bernard and Eugene's other very extended family, Eugene has had 3 chances by the end of this episode, 3 chances over the run of this show to find live family members since he was 7 years old. He found Hiram only a week after his death, and then he finds Thelma's grave 2 years after her death, and then he finds the cave-in where Leonard was theoretically crushed only 3 months after the fact.
Okay, I wasn't sure what... I was thinking, like, yeah. Hiram and
then both his parents, yeah. And he's like, Hiram, I barely missed him, but he was already dead. Thelma, I find her, barely missed her, she already died. And then the cave-in, and they're like, yeah, Leonard also died in there too. And it's like the successive blows that Eugene has received without any success in between, except for like Bernard and like way farther family out, is heartbreaking. Like Eugene having to go through all of those things like that. Like, I can't imagine.
I think Hiram's death, like, always hits me every single time I listen to Last in a Long Line.
Close.
It was a week. Like, if he knew about that 2 weeks before, he would have been able to spend his last week with him.
Yeah, it's been like over 10 years since Eugene has seen any close family.
That close. And like the scene where he's like has the jar and he's shaking it and it has all the coins in it and it's just like
you put one in here every year for you, hoping you would come back.
Do you think like...
And then he died and you weren't here for it.
Oh man. No, oh my gosh. What if Eugene did that for Buck? Like he gives him like a gold coin or something like that, silver dollar every year. And just...
I feel like the sentiment wouldn't be nearly as heavy, but it is still sweet.
Eugene's just like, I'll make you go. And he's like, do you like it, Buck? And Buck's like, yeah, but I don't really get it. He's like, I'll make you appreciate it by making you go through the same thing I went through.
What do you think Mr. Skin's going to come back?
Soon, I hope. I thought he was going to come back this album.
Maybe part 2 of Legacy.
Last
Maybe
album,
that happened already because we haven't listened to Legacy Part 2 yet.
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
Unless it wants to end on a cliffhanger with him just showing up. I mean, it kind of did that with Jules.
Hey, it's like all country people singing about apples. It's perfect for
it
Mr.
attracted him.
Yeah.
There was so much country in one episode. I felt neglected. Where's my invitation?
Yeah. I felt a disturbance in the bumpkin force. Yeah, so this episode is like all of these like just blows to the gut to Eugene over and over. And obviously the Hiram thing was forever ago, but it's like that happened. And then it's like your mother, he's like, he has this hope. And he's like, I'm so scared to hope that it's real, but it could be. And I have to fight it. And then he finds Thelma's grave and he's like, she died. I love the fact that his first thought is like that his father is alone now and he needs me even more now. Like his thought isn't about worrying about himself and his own sadness that his mother's gone again and he won't be able to find her after all, but that his father now has lost him and he's lost Thelma.
That he carries with him.
And then he finds out, and then they're like,
make things even sadder.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh yeah, Leonard was also crushed 3 months ago, even less. And that's where the episode ends there before he finds out that he's alive. So the episode ends with Leonard and Thelma both supposedly dead, and Eugene and Katrina are about to be traded into captivity. I was thinking about it...
And then Chris is like, wait 1 more week, kids! And all the kids are like, ah!
I was thinking about it. If this was my first time hearing this, knowing there was one part left, and not knowing anything else about what's going to happen at this point, I would probably predict that both of his parents really were dead, and that they're going to end up going back to the village and fixing it, and that the whole thing about Eugene's parents maybe being alive, but then they weren't, was just like a lesson for Eugene about something. I don't know. Hope.
I think I would be like
maybe
really 50-50.
I'm not sure
whether they were alive or not.
I'm not sure how you would connect a lesson you could draw out of that with this stuff about the Ashantis and what was going on with them. But I would assume like, oh, because it's like they both were maybe alive and then dead again in the same episode. So I would and that's the end of the episode without being like, oh, maybe he's alive, cliffhanger, and it ends there. If that was my first time listening to it, I probably would think like, oh, I guess they are both gone after all. And it's just about Eugene getting closure on finding out what happened to his parents.
I probably think like
sucky.
They are dead, but part of me would be like, but I want them to be alive. Like,
I believe.
I have like
X-Files.
This really like small hope because it's probably wrong that they aren't dead, but they probably are.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good part, and I didn't write a lot about specifics because it's just happening, and I'm just listening to it raptly.
All your attention.
Yeah,
all your synapses in your brain are just focusing.
So many good characters, and they'll have their different arcs. Like they brought in a lot of characters who they gave a pretty good amount of dimension for the amount of time they had. Plus, bringing in all this,
Yosef and Amon and Gobir and
Kwame,
thank you, are really good characters. I wish they were in more episodes. I'm glad we did get them in as many episodes as we did, because upon listening to this, it doesn't seem like there would be more episodes with them. Yet they were all in a couple more, so like that's pretty cool.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Some of them, like
Gobir was not around the block.
Amir was in more episodes. She was in
Amon.
A New Era. That's what I meant.
Yeah, Amon was in A New Era, and Gobir appeared.
Gobir was in A New Era.
No. Oh. He appeared in we forgot the name of last time. He wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yes, and he was also in the finale of 46. Forgot it last time. Just the time fraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Eugene was learning about Dalton Kern and the Wolofs and stuff. I don't think they ever mentioned Dalton by name in here.
I don't think they do. They just say like the gang and stuff.
Yeah, they're like an American
the bad guys. The bad guys.
It's the classic story of everything that's ever gone wrong in the world.
The Americans showed up and ruined everything.
I should say, not necessarily Americans, but the white people came and messed everything up.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like new people showed up and messed up everything.
I mean, let's be fair.
Usually,
for most of history, it was the Europeans showed up, which then eventually, became America because America was taken over by the Europeans. So,
America.
And Canada as well. We are absolutely complicit in all of it too.
Yeah. Like World War I, and Britain's like, hey, we're gonna go fight, and we're like, can we come too, Mommy? And he's like, sure, come on, scamp.
No, I mean Canada doing bad things.
Oh, well, yeah, that too. I mean, like, we get roped into whatever Britain does, pretty much. Not as much anymore, but...
We've done our own bad stuff, too. Let's forget residential schools didn't close until after I was born. That's how long they were going.
What's residential
crazy.
Schools?
You know, like, we'll talk about it later.
Okay. I don't really have anything to say on this episode. It's a good episode.
It is so good. The music's still great. In case you guys are wondering, just an update for y'all.
It's the same music from part 1, more or less.
It's good. It's a good episode. Stuff happens in it. I was surprised because, I mean, the thing is, with episodes that we didn't listen to when they first came out, we never really know, like, where the barrier between episodes is, you know, because we just, like, listen to them all through.
Continuously.
Especially ones like this, where there's no wrap-up from Chris in between. They just flow through.
Darian's Rise.
Yeah. Exactly. So you won't know when a part stops and ends unless you, like...
It gets really confusing also when
it's right there.
Cut up into 3 tracks.
Exactly.
And the name is super long, so you can't
see the track until it scrolls by on iTunes.
That killed me when Green Ring Conspiracy first came out. It still does. Like, it's so hard to make a playlist for that album. If I mess up,
you really have to widen the name.
No, I mean, like, if it's on my iPod,
phone, yeah.
I can't do that, and like I have to like click on each episode individually to make sure it's in the right spot, and it drives me insane.
So, yeah, that's what I found interesting was, like, when I listened to it one episode at a time and stop it in between to actually see where the episode barriers are. The interesting thing I found about this was that there's a lot more packed into what's left for part 3 than I would think.
Same.
Like, when I think about everything that still has to happen in part 3, it's like, wow, it feels like there should have been more in this episode that happened,
like,
you know?
This episode and the first one, usually in a 3-parter, it's like the first one is just like the introduction, and it also usually has I'm going to use like English terms, storytelling terms, the exposition and the inciting incident, and it sometimes even starts the rising action, whereas the second one's usually like rising action, ending with the crisis. The next one starts off crisis, climax, denouement. And then, but this one, it's kind of like the rising action. The crisis doesn't hit in this one until like the end of this part, but it takes a really long time to do the exposition. Yeah. So it seems like the rising action isn't as
Because the thing is the crisis this, or is it when they're on the bridge with Gobir? And
the definition of a crisis is the moment where you're like in most emotional distress in the storyline. Okay.
I guess that's the climax. Gobir's the climax.
So that would be like...
And this is the crisis.
Eugene finding out that his parents are dead.
Yeah.
Indefinitely. Until he finds out that they aren't. Well, one of them,
yeah.
But...
Okay, you're right then. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, with One More Name Part 2 as well, going back to the first part, like, I'm sure I mentioned this before, but we haven't recorded the first part of this yet, so it's kind of weird. Like, when it ended, I was like, oh, I thought there was going to be more of, like, I don't know. I thought more was going to happen in part 2. They got Ariella out, but it's like everyone's been taken to the concentration camp.
Oh,
now,
right, yeah.
Including Shoshana.
Yeah, that one took a long time to set things up, too. But they also had to set up, like... And with this one, they have to set up the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And the setting.
The thing is, both of them, they have a new setting and a lot of characters to introduce.
Like, general 3-part Odyssey episodes, like, great, like, life expectations or something like that. That's... I always get it wrong with Great Expectations. Life expectancy, that one, it's set in Odyssey. We already know who the full cast of characters are. So by the time June's news of her passing comes about, like, we already know who everyone is. So we don't really need any...
Except for this new Jeff Lewis guy, whoever he is.
Jeff Lewis. Oh, I love him so much. He needs to be in more episodes. But, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, good. We'll obviously rate it next time when we finish it. And finish One More Name, Part 3. Wrap both up those 3-parters next time. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Still good stuff. I love this arc. Love Eugene, Leonard, Katrina, everything.
Love everything.
It's good.
It's a bundle of love.
Great episode.
It's
so good.
I hate Tony the Tiger.
So, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. What are we talking about next time, Victoria? What are we doing?
Part 3.
No, because we're just doing this right now. We're doing...
Like... Movie! I don't know what it's called.
Shadow of a Doubt.
Ooh.
Doing the fourth animated series.
I'm not sure we should do that. I doubt it's a good idea.
So that's what we're doing next time. It's been a while since we did a movie. Not super long, but, still a while. We got a bunch of them to get through, so we actually do have to do them, if we ever want to actually get through them all. So, that's what we're doing next time. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
It's a hoot.
They can't really see all of them.
It's an owl. Crap. I almost fell over on your heater.
You want to try a third time?
No. Yes. Stand up normally and that works.
You've been watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Go, Odyssey!